Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a truly beautiful concept that completely reframes how we understand our spiritual freedom. It's called the toga of sonship. To really grasp this, I want you to just take a second and picture something with me. Imagine the son of a tremendously wealthy and powerful Roman ruler.
Now, legally speaking, that kid owns everything. The entire inheritance already belongs to him. But because he's still a child, his everyday reality looks completely different. Picture him walking down the dark sunrise streets of ancient Rome. He's wearing just a plain, simple tunic, and walking right beside him is a notoriously strict tutor carrying a heavy stack of scrolls. His life is basically just a march to duty.
See, in ancient Rome, these guardians and tutors were incredibly strict figures. They oversaw literally every single aspect of a child's life. It creates this fascinating tension, right? The young boy owns the whole estate on paper, but functionally, he lives completely under these rigid restrictions. Day to day, his schedule, his movements, his rules, they are entirely managed by someone else.
He just cannot yet walk in the freedom of mature sonship. You can almost feel the frustration, can't you? Imagine him standing there, stuck in those restrictive childhood clothes, just watching all the adult men pass by in total freedom. He's an heir, sure, but he's essentially living the life of a servant.
But then, something happens. Then comes the appointed day. And this is absolutely crucial. It's a day specifically chosen by the Father. It's the moment when that heavy time of immaturity finally comes to an end.
The Father brings that child forward, and the garments of immaturity are put away forever. In their place, the Son receives the toga virilis. That's the brilliant, bright white Roman garment of true adulthood. Imagine the Father, standing in the warm sunlight, proudly placing that bright white toga right over his Son's shoulders.
In that one exact moment, everything changes. It is a massive hinge point in this young man's life. The time of being treated like a slave or a servant under strict rules is completely over. He is now fully recognized as a mature heir.
Now, you might be wondering, why are we talking about ancient Roman clothing in this explainer? Well, because that exact scenario is the vivid, beautiful picture the Apostle Paul uses in his letter to the Galatians.
Paul maps this metaphor out perfectly for us. He explains that the law, the old rules and restrictions, was acting as our strict guardian. It kept us in line during our spiritual childhood. But then, when the absolute fullness of time arrived, that appointed day, God sent forth his own Son to bring us out of that childhood and into mature sonship.
And because of that incredible act, the heirs of God are no longer slaves living under those harsh, restrictive guardians. We are sons. We are daughters. We step fully into the immense freedom secured by the empty tomb. It's a completely different way of living, fueled by grace and joyful worship instead of fear.
Which leads us to a really striking question. If you've been given that white toga, why in the world would you ever go backward? I mean, just think about the imagery here. Why would any heir of God willingly put those restrictive children's clothes back on and trudge back to the schoolyard, especially after they've already inherited the entire kingdom? Paul literally calls that regression. And listen, it's not because God's earlier covenant or the law was a bad thing. It wasn't. It was simply a temporary guardian. It was a shadow, and you don't need to hold on to the shadow anymore because the absolute fullness has finally arrived in Jesus Christ.
The shadow has officially given way to the substance. You have been given the garments of grace. So the question is, will you choose to walk in the full freedom of your adoption today?